This is EventsDemystified podcast, the podcast where we unpack the real stories behind impactful events. It's brought to you by Trifine Events Production, your partner in full service production, AI-driven event strategy, and our Fit for Events framework, which helps industry pros thrive mentally, physically, and creatively. I'm your host, Anka Plata Trifan, and today we're going behind the scenes on powerful event planning, contracts, and negotiation tips with someone who knows how to turn vision into experience, even when the industry is shifting fast. Is the event industry hitting a pause or just trying to figure out how to play smarter? Today's guest has been behind the scenes of high-end hospitality for over 2 decades, and she's here to talk about how to keep the momentum going even in uncertain times. From hotel contracts and luxury experiences to micro retreats and tacos, you're in for a flavorful episode. Yep, you heard that right, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Events Demystified podcast, where we demystify the world of in-person, virtual, and hybrid events, AV production, and AI technology by sharing practical tips, tricks, and strategies to help your event succeed. This podcast is brought to you by Trifan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency that caters to event professionals, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. We specialize in AV and AI education, integration, automation, and implementation, all based on our Fit for Events framework, which focuses on futuristic AV production, innovative AI technology, thriving audiences, and empowering behind-the-scenes teams. And I'm your host, Anka Platon Trifan, with over 2 decades of hands-on experience in event production, event management, and now AI technologies and cybersecurity.
Our guest today is Brittney Cobb, Director of Global Events with Innovate Meetings and Managing Director at Assemble Hospitality. She's an award-winning hospitality pro with 22 years of experience spanning hotels, casinos, food and beverage, and large-scale live events. From large-scale conferences to intimate leadership retreats, she's built a name for crafting high-touch, high-impact experiences with a special focus on logistics, contract strategy, and client-centered service. Whether it's a leadership retreat or a multi-day conference, Brittney brings logistical precision and luxury flair to every experience. Brittney is also a hotel contract expert, a micro resort developer, and perhaps most importantly, a certified taco connoisseur. She's been featured as a national TV personality, and when she's not crafting memorable experiences, she's out living life boldly, one meaningful moment at the time. And without further ado, let's welcome our guest in. Welcome to the show. Welcome to have you. You know what's so fun for anyone that is joining us today? First off, we have had Brittney on the show before. Do you remember what year that was?
I think it was 2021. Yeah, it was right after COVID.
That's right, because we were talking about contracts and negotiation and force majeure clauses right post-COVID and how to maximize all of that. Well, we're going to talk about other crises now. In 2025, we're definitely not short of those. But before we get to do that, I like to kick things off with something lighter. And I feel like this is a very crucial, high stakes question.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, gosh. Yes. If you could serve one kind of taco at your dream micro retreat, Brittney, what's on the menu and what's the vibe? Is it beach, mountains, dessert, go wild? What is it?
Yeah, well, wow, what a loaded question, truthfully. So I'll start with, I'm a beach girl at heart, so it would definitely be at a beautiful tropical beach location. And I do also love seafood, but to kind of tie and blend this together, one of my personal favorite tacos that I make is freshly harvested elk tacos. So I'm thinking I can blend this and do like a surf and turf. So I would do elk and lobster tacos. That sounds so good right now.
But isn't it Taco Tuesday when we're recording?
It is. Oh my gosh, we didn't even plan that. How appropriate. I love it.
Well, for those that don't know, this said elk, Brittney would go and hunt it herself, actually.
I actually would. I am just getting ready to put in actually for my Idaho tags, and I really hope to have the opportunity this fall to harvest a cow elk and stock my freezer.
First time I was visiting with Brittney and went to her house, she has this like huge elk antler. What do you call that? Like, is it a trophy? What is it?
Well, on my wall,
Yeah.
so that's an aoudad, a ram.
Okay.
Yes. So they're in the sheep family, basically.
Got it. Well, I'm not a hunter. I'm like, it looks very large and scary. Brittney, did you hunt this yourself?
Yes, that was in
And
East
sure enough,
West Texas, right outside of Marfa on a beautiful, what do you call it? Not a plantation, reservation there. So we went down. I went down with a few ladies, friends of mine that are part of Cryptech Outdoor Group, which is based here in Idaho, and Prime Revolution, which is a hunting television series. And so we filmed a show. But yeah, that was my first big game hunt. It was such an incredible experience. There's a lot, I know a lot of controversy around that topic, but I think when you really educate yourself and understand the importance of conservation and maintaining habitats so that herds and animals can actually thrive, then it's really important and it's something that must be done. So
well, I know that's not the topic of our conversation, but I just wanted to create this. It's such a dichotomy with Brittney because you're like high luxury and the hospitality pro, and then you also you're not afraid to get your hands dirty. And I will
true.
say to that taco, like the mix that you just proposed, that sounds amazing. And I've had some tacos made by Brittney on her Taco Tuesday experiences that every so often she would host at her house. And by the way, we're actually literally less than a mile away from each other.
Yeah.
And we were considering recording this in person, but then my schedule just got hectic and I just couldn't figure out how to put that on the schedule in a way that made sense. So we're like, okay, virtual it is. But literally, like I could walk to her house and have tacos if that's what we wanted to do right
Let's
after.
get to it.
And now that we set our priorities straight, right? Food first.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment to reintroduce you to our listeners. You've had such a thriving career, and I love to hear how you describe the work that you're doing right now.
Wow. Well, I feel like I'm always doing multifaceted things, but my passion is the hospitality industry. Like you mentioned, I've had over 22 years now, which is hard to believe. Experience in a lot of different facets. I actually got my degree in hospitality management. It's funny, I like to share that I started out as a pre-med major in college and started working at beach resorts and in the hospitality industry in between college during the summers, and really just developed my passion for that and decided I would rather serve people in making life memories and having great experiences versus seeing them and serving them in hospitals. So that's kind of what changed my trajectory and path career wise. But yeah, my focus right now is working with a variety of different types of clients, primarily in the corporate and association markets, helping them source and really negotiating on their behalf and creating strong hotel contracts so that they're obtaining the best cost savings that they can. And these are real bottom line dollars, as well as protecting themselves and eliminating risk based on our ever changing climate that we find ourselves in now and moving forward. And that's on a global basis. So I've got clients from all over and planning events all over the world, which is fun because that also fills my passion for travel and experiencing the world. And then on another sector, I'm working with a dear friend of both yours and mine here locally, Don Berger, on a new hospitality lodging concept called Assemble Boise, We've got our first prototype happening right in downtown Boise. And that gives a real strong focus on smaller meetings, corporate offsites, and retreats, and creating a purpose built space that caters to the needs of that type of meeting or retreat.
I love that. And on top of that, we have to announce the fact that Brittney
Oh,
also got married in the
yes.
meantime. And she has 2 wonderful sons and a cat. So that kind of fills your plate at this point.
It really does. And yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I cannot believe literally, so June 9th, we're a couple weeks out from being at the 1 year mark. So last year, so grateful, Anka joined me and came to our wedding. We got married in Cancun, Mexico. And so, wow, I really can't believe that it's been a year.
It's
What an
been a
amazing,
year, right?
yeah.
It's crazy just thinking about how fast it went by. Probably you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes it went really fast and some days it didn't.
Yeah, true. But every time I think back, I mean, I've watched our video probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 times in the last year. And it just truly brings me so much joy. Everything about that day, everything leading up to that, it took me a long time to get to that point in my life and to find my future long term partner. And yeah, it was just absolutely perfect. Only had one little hiccup, which was an AV issue during the ceremony.
Yes,
Batteries were
Anka
dead.
was off that day.
Yes, not because of Anka, but yeah, otherwise it was such
Actually,
a
I remember we were talking about it, like do the AV part, be the
live
guest.
stream. Yeah,
And I was like, I don't want to do that, Brittney. Let's make sure that the venue provides what they need. And they did. I think they did
for
their best effort. And if I remember correctly, it was more of like a battery type of problem. Like literally the microphones went dead and the battery died or something like that.
yeah.
And then
Thankfully, my dear friend Chadwick was there. He sang during the ceremony,
he
so he
did.
brought his own equipment, and he knew, so he snuck over, transferred his mic to be hooked up.
It did work out. It was great. It was such a beautiful ceremony, and the
Thank you.
setting and just everything about it was wonderful. And I also enjoyed the fact that you did a lot of work prior to that, but then the day of, you were able to just relax. Because I
Yes.
know, especially when you're in that position to be the event planner that is now the bride, like your
Oh yeah.
mind is just going in all directions of all the details, all the things that you know that need to be checked off the list. But then
You're
you're also the
right.
bride. You're supposed to step back and let others do the rest because you've done your job. Your one job is to just show up and be beautiful and just enjoy the day.
Yeah, and that was so 2 challenges, I think, being a planner and planning your wedding. I mean, first of all, I had an incredible on-site event planner. She was amazing. Paulina, she actually has ventured off and is doing her own thing now. So if anyone is looking, like, let me know, I'll share her info. But she was incredible. But the biggest challenge I faced was knowing all the possibilities and all the different options that are available and the things you can create and do, and having to choose because I wanted to do everything. So that was a challenge in the beginning. And then, yes, day of, I did at one, literally while I was waiting to walk down the aisle, seeing the moving pieces, and I was on time. I will just say that me personally, I was on time that day, which was
A
amazing.
miracle of God.
But I don't know, some things obviously got held up. And so, according to the timeline, like it did start late. And I'm thinking, what is happening? I was like, should I be going now? Like, should we go? And I had to stop. I said, I am so sorry. I know that you are the planner right now. Let me just be quiet. I know you got this. And so let me let you execute. And she just laughed. It was good. But
I do remember something about the butterflies.
oh,
The
yeah.
timing of the butterflies. There's this beautiful little boxes that we all got, and we were supposed to release them right
Yeah.
at one point, but I just feel like we missed the cues. Like I think we were just like vacation mode and our brains weren't really thinking much about what would be the perfect time to release this. Let's all release it, because once you let those butterflies out, they're not
They're
coming back. There is no like second try. This is
Yeah.
the only try.
Yes. So it was supposed to be communicated to everyone when they handed you the butterfly, like to wait. And the pastor would cue everyone, which would be at the end as we're walking, being announced to then release your butterflies. Anyway, miscommunication. Me and my dad and grandfather did a little butterfly release at the beginning before I walked down the aisle, memory of both of my grandmothers. So, butterflies, if you know me, you know the story, which is really amazing, but they have a special place in my family's heart, and so that was symbolic for them. But yeah, some people saw us releasing, which obviously would might be a cue to release, but again, it all worked
Yeah, it
out too with the
definitely
butterflies beginning
confused
and
some of us.
yeah, it was great. Everything turned out
It was
perfect.
wonderful. I loved it. It was such a wonderful experience and to vacation. It was our first time going to Mexico as a family, actually. So it was wonderful. We had the special occasion for which to go, but then also enjoyed ourselves before and after. And that being said, I feel like it's a great segue into just events in general, into the meat of our conversation.
Yeah.
And I want to zoom out a little bit for a second because actually, I want to ground the conversation into the reality of the current event situation and what we're facing. And there was this recent report that came out March, actually, just 2 months ago, that was sponsored by Cvent, and North Star is the one that puts it out. It's called the Planner Pulse Survey. And it talks about how 18% of planners feel more optimistic than they did 2 months ago. And that's down from 45% as far as optimism goes just in January about the general state of the event industry. But then the costs are spiking. 69% of planner, they're citing that there's a higher than expected food and beverage cost. 63% said that hotel rates are skyrocketing. And yet 70% are still sourcing actively.
Oh
So
yeah.
people and planners and event professionals aren't stopping. They're just being forced now to get a lot more done with less. So to be more
Right.
strategic. So my question to you, Brittney, with optimism dropping and cost rising, are you seeing clients pause their plans or just plan differently? And how are you helping them stay strategic without losing momentum in the face of all this unrest?
Yeah, well, great questions. Again, very loaded question because there is so much going on right now. I tell people like we survived 2020 air, but it seems like every year there's just been something new and something going on since. So, where do I start with that? I think for me, so I'll start with this. I'm personally an internal optimist. I just lean on the side of optimism in pretty much all areas of my life. That being said, I am still in touch with reality. When it comes to rising cost, and Mike Dominguez is the expert at this. If anyone follows him, or if you don't, I recommend do. I stay very well in touch with his biweekly calls and staying updated because he just has such an incredible global pulse on everything happening in our industry, the political aspects of it. So that's a great resource if you're looking to stay plugged in. I think what people need to really do is not look to our main media sources for their final answers. I think that really skews a lot of the reality of what's happening. And you've got to really educate and dig into why costs are rising and what items or things are really experiencing cost increase. So right now we know like okay, tariffs has been the big headline. Well, that whole issue changes as much as I change my underwear. Twice daily if you must know. But I mean, truthfully, it's like who can even keep up with that? Just yesterday, I saw that our administration came to an agreement with China and reduced where tariffs went up. They were 145%. Well, now they're down. We're in agreement for 30%. Okay, so things are happening every night that is impacting everything. And by the time one thing gets implemented, it's like gone and something new is implemented. So it's important to stay up to speed on that. At the same time, that's why I say, listen, control the things you can control. Take things day by day and move forward with optimism. because what we face today is going to be totally different tomorrow. If you keep holding out and freezing in spite of fear, you're never going to get anywhere. And that in turn, from a company's perspective, just impacts your company as a whole, not just today, but in the long term as well. So you've got to just press forward, control what you can. Let's see, where else do we want to go with that? Like hotel room rates, for example. And so I'll say this, when we talk about cost continuing to rise, like, yes, they are in some areas. And I don't have the exact statistic on this, but I know still as of recently, the real issue is the fact that wages have not kept up with and risen along with inflation and rising cost of products across the board. So that's why we're feeling that more directly. The last time that I checked and heard, inflation has actually slowed down and was back to a pretty even playing field compared to back again, like pre-COVID or COVID era. And that we're not really seeing that inflation rate like exacerbate and continue to be on a very strong rise. Now, again, you may have that with certain things. Okay, let's talk about eggs again. There was a major bird flu that wiped it out. So that's going to directly impact that particular product. So when things like that happen, you've got to be able to quickly, again, have that knowledge and then pivot and make adjustments necessary. So if chicken is going to be extremely expensive, well, maybe you have, and you put into, let's talk hotel contracts, that you've got some flex on your food and beverage options. When is the deadline to pick them? Let's look at what price points and let's adjust accordingly. That's where having and partnering with someone who has a good pulse and is staying up to speed on those things, who can be a really strong partner and team player with you and your team and planning your events, really matters. And I think at the end of the day, that's what you need to be focusing on. Finding a partner who can help educate you and your team, who is for you, who's going to pay attention to these things, what matters most to you in your company's events, what matters to your bottom line, and who can negotiate very fiercely on your behalf so that at the end, no matter what happens with the tariffs, you're protected the best, you are obtaining the best cost savings up front that we can, and that you're not going to be held reliable for additional fees and expenses that maybe you hadn't thought of or planned for should you fall into that.
So talking about the food and beverages and room rate soaring, what strategies are you seeing work right now, especially when we talk about smart sourcing, and where do planners still have leverage?
Well, yeah. So with food and beverage, again, I think it goes back to understanding what items are high right now, what's not, understanding what your actual needs are, and then planning accordingly. And there's a lot of ways. So, I mean, leverage wise, the days of just asking for, let me get this discount on your food and beverage menu. I mean, some hotels are still doing that. A lot aren't, just because of the fluctuation of prices with food items. They're having to adjust, change menus, change the products that they're bringing in frequently as well. So it's not really beneficial for anyone to just go with that. It's having real conversations with the property, with the food and beverage director, with the catering teams, and understand, how can we make this a win-win for both? What flexibility do we have with our food and beverage? And how can we work together? There's opportunities to piggyback, if you will, off of other groups. So maybe you can do kind of a bulk buying method, we call it. Just think about going to Costco, find out what other groups are in-house, and how can you guys both benefit and piggyback to make the most of your spend, which helps the hotels out as well, and their planning and their allocation and determining their actual revenue.
So let's just say you're sourcing for 2026, 2027, obviously into the dark, like, right? You're negotiating those contracts and you don't really know what's going to come down the pipeline. Is there something that you can embed into your contract as a clause, or is it something that it's to have that conversation closer to the date, or how does it work in a more strategic manner?
Sure. So one thing that we have been implementing again and having conversations with our hotel partners and implementing in the contract is a budgeted amount per person for meals and kind of a prefix menu. So let's just say it's your protein. Now we don't have to have listed chicken or steak in the contract, but what that would include. And then as you're getting closer to your date, having conversations again with the food and beverage directors, understanding, okay, what items are available to us that can still fall within our budgeted amount per person for each meal, and then crafting your menus based on that so that then you're still getting a high quality menu items based on what's available and at great price points for the hotels, but still within your budget. I think that's been a huge game changer for us in having those conversations and again putting that in the contract, because then you know what you're spending and know that at the end of the day you can still get a high quality product for your budget.
So you've obviously over the years negotiated your share of tough contracts. What should planners be asking for right now as we're in the middle of this uncertainty? As you said, the news out there do not help with sometimes the optimism that we talked about, because things are moving so fast and change so much. And what are your personal non-negotiables when you go to the negotiation table?
Yeah, great question. So, again, I think what you should always be pushing for and negotiating is a fair contract that protects you in any given scenario. Because we are in times that, again, it fluctuates day to day. So, the bottom line is you've got to have something that protects you in any given scenario. I always share this example because it's just so valuable and it's true. Not a single one of our clients during the COVID era lost a penny or had to pay an additional penny for moving or canceling their programs. That's because our contract terms, our force majeure clause specifically, already included pandemics, epidemics, WHO, CDC, long before we ever even knew these things.
We're faced with one.
Come to fruition. And so it's having the expertise.
I think right now, Brittney, we need to start including AI takeover.
Good point. And we have actually started to see and talk about some specific AI type clauses as that's an ever.
Your AI agent went crazy calling all these venues and booking all these spaces on your behalf and signing contract on your behalf because he just was going rapid crazy. And you're like, wait a second, now I'm liable for all these contracts. We have to have it in the contract that if a agent happens to go a little rogue, we need to bring that back and be still protected.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, that is going to be a shift in things, like I said, that we're already starting to see become implemented and that we're working on with our specific contracts as well. And people have asked me before, like, oh, are you scared of AI? Like that people aren't going to need you and your services? And my answer is no, because I still believe and I know that you need someone that is a human, that is hands-on when it comes to certain elements. I love AI, and I think there's a lot of things I've implemented a lot in my life that help streamline and do a lot of things that make my day-to-day much easier and smoother. But I don't think that it will wipe out total human connection, especially where my role is concerned.
I don't think so either. I was actually having a conversation with AI technology platform that is operating especially in this sourcing negotiation space. And we're talking about how their AI agent can go to 100 different properties and negotiate on the behalf of the client, blah, 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 all of that things. And they have some results and obviously they have some data to prove and all that. And I was bringing up the point of like, well, that's great from an efficiency, productivity point of view, that's great. But I think our industry is still so heavily based on relationships.
Oh,
And yes, you might go on with speed. Like, let's say if you have to send out 100 RFPs yourself, it's going to take you a certain amount of time, right? If you
right.
have an AI agent that does it on your behalf, it's going to be much, much faster. But I think the quality of the work has to be question versus quantity at one point, right? And also going back to the relationship, going back to human-centric AI, right? The human in the loop where you still want to shake someone's hand versus there's this contract that was negotiating somewhere in the cloud on my behalf, and that agent, AI agent, does not have neither the tribal knowledge, the expertise, domain expertise, nor my understanding of the industry, of the certain nuances that go
Right.
into this process.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Well, with that being said, we're going to take a quick pause right here because I'm actually excited to announce something for our listeners. I am launching a brand new on-demand course series for event professionals who want to integrate AI tools into their strategy without the overwhelm. We're talking about real use cases, practical tools, and smart automation that saves time and brain power. And if you want to stay sharp and future ready, then visit Refine Events and sign up for the access. And if you're the first to access that, you're also going to get some perks. And with that, let's bring our conversation back to, as we were talking about, your personal non-negotiables that you like to include when you negotiate contracts.
Yeah. So one of the biggest ones that I've yet to find in a hotel initiated contract that is a non-negotiable is a hotel cancellation clause. So every contract is going to have cancellation terms for the end user should they cancel for any reason. Typically that's a tiered cancellation policy, but rarely do you see those terms in place should the hotel cancel on you.
Right.
And every time I mention that, I remember I actually had a company's internal legal team that came back to me after reviewing and said, well, we don't want this in there because that basically gives the hotel an option to cancel on us. I said, the hotel has an option to cancel on you with or without that clause. And that's exactly why we have it in there. Because without it,
You're
you're
not
dead.
protected.
Exactly. With that, you're at least protected if that happens. And we have seen in the last few years it happening more frequently because of the supply and the demand. And you mentioned in the beginning of this that business isn't slowing down, and it really isn't. I can touch a little more on that in a minute. But if you're not ready to sign on the dotted line, if you don't want this space, I guarantee still there's other groups coming in or already in line behind you that want or need the space. And so there are times when hotels will have a much larger and more profitable piece of business come along, and they will cancel your group's program in order to take that business in. I'm sure it doesn't very well for the feelings that are left from that and the relationship between the client that's being canceled on, but it can and it does happen. So you want to make sure that you're protected if that happens to you. So that is definitely one of the biggest ones. Gosh, I'm trying to think of what some others are out of all of them. We've got strong terms around attrition and cancellation as far as how those fees are calculated for your group if you were to fall into either of that. We never want to base that on the total revenue. Instead, we always base that on group profit. So understanding what that profit margin is for food and beverage, for even AV, and for your rooms is important so that you can negotiate that fairly, and how to present that to your hotels. That's a huge too. And again, that's real bottom line savings. I think that's important now more than ever too, because should you be in an industry where travel is impacted or you are having maybe lower turnout right now because of the state of the economy, it's really important to know what you're on the hook for via your contract with hotels and what those, again, damages from a cost perspective are should that happen.
Absolutely. I wanted to run a few concessions by you. Were shared to me by David Stevens. He's the host of Return on Wellness, and we were having a conversation about this on a different episode. And he had this list, which it was the first time I saw it, that he would always attach to the RFP to ensure that the expectations are set clearly for both parties. And
Right.
a few of those included will only pay $75 per gallon for coffee, which apparently is a big deal one because coffee can be like wildly
Oh,
priced.
I just had a client in California, and theirs was 141, I think, a gallon.
Which is insane. Like I go to Starbucks and buy cheaper coffee and I would bring it to my event if I have to pay that much for this like god awful coffee that you're serving me.
I know.
Another thing was consumption based pricing on tea. And I thought that was interesting. Like you literally
Yes.
the tea,
Right.
the tea, whatever packets, 80% sleeping room attrition. I'm not sure how common that is or not. And then if hotel is sold out during the course of the meeting, then attrition is waived.
Mm-hmm.
And then a $0 meeting room rental fees, because I assume you already have all this food and beverage cost embedded into it. And then based on existing menu macronutrients, the client reserves the right to bring in their own high protein supplementary snacks for breaks.
Interesting.
And then one more, which this comes from Tracy Struck. I think I'm going to mispronounce her last name, but she is the host of, what is the name of the podcast? Food and Meetings or something like that.
Okay.
But she talks about allergens all the time. So all
Yeah.
food and beverage items must be labeled with allergens outlined and including pest items, which I
Right.
thought was interesting because I mean, there's definitely been stories about people being allergic to certain things and then not realizing that it's in the sauce or I don't know, it's been
Right.
sprinkled on this one thing. But yeah, so those are some of the major ones and then a list of other different ones. But what do you think of those concessions? Do you have anything else that you feel like it's top of line for you as well?
Right. Yeah. I mean, all of those are great if they are great for your client. And yes, there is this note. A lot of planners out there just have this kind of ongoing list that they just submit and
Does
see
that
what results
work?
they
Do you feel
want.
like that works?
Well, again, yes and no. I
Mhm.
think it's really important to understand what is most important to the group or the client. If I'm requesting, I don't know, something food like the macro menu thing. I mean, I've never had that requested. Is that
I
really
would only be the one to request it. I'm like, what is it, this food? I need to know the macros. I think it's
right?
specific
So,
for fitness-based type of events, wellness-based
right.
event. Think about like, say, if a 24 Fitness, a user conference was at this
Yeah,
venue and all the trainers and coaches were going, they would be very specific of what type of
for
nutrition you're
sure.
going to serve them because they might be on some kind of a training cycle. They might be bulking. They might be cutting. You can't make
Right.
everyone happy. Someone might be like, I need all the food, all the protein, all the snacks. Someone else would be like, no, I don't want just carbs. Like I really need to keep it clean. But then someone that's kind of go happy, go lucky, there's like, you cannot remove those donuts from my table because I really want them kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's what I'm saying. For that type of group, obviously, that's something that is very relevant, pertains to them, and is probably very important to them. So, absolutely, I think it's great to push for that. But not every concession is great for every group, nor important or used by every group. So, in order to maximize and leverage the best you can, it's understanding what are the things your group is going to use or need and
And then
what's
just sprinkle concessions based on the group's needs.
yeah, you can. Oh, absolutely. So, my strategy is when I am kind of intaking the information from a client for their program, I ask them that. What are concessions that you've had in the past that you are kind of non negotiables for you or deal breakers? What's most important? Are there things that you haven't had that you would like to have? What's something that you've seen that you've not used? I don't know. If you've got complimentary gym access and no one's going to go to the gym, and there's an actual fee attached to that. And that's the thing too, is sometimes people throw in concessions that aren't really a concession. If the hotel's already offering this, then it's not a concession. It's an existing offer. So I think that is the strategy and where people need to start from. Having a list that you just submit may or may not be the most beneficial and strategic way to approach concessions. And I mean, I've heard from some of our hotel partners that, especially after a while working with the same planners or whatever, that they see these lists and it's like, okay.
Here we
And
go again. I think it's good to have the list, but
like,
it's kind of like a shopping cart menu. Like you
yeah,
will take from that list what's relevant to that group specifically.
correct.
Don't just send the shopping cart with your concessions and you're
Yeah.
like, your group doesn't even care about it. Like, we don't even have a spa. Like, what are you talking about? You want a concession on the spa.
Well, yeah. And if something like if getting the room rate a little bit lower versus all of these other concessions or just something else, there's always ways to negotiate and again, do things that are going to be most beneficial for the group. And that's the approach that we take and go by. There was one thing you mentioned. Oh, I think the meeting room rental
Oh,
fees.
0% meeting room fees. How does that play out practically,
I'll
or
touch on that
do you
just
not see
because
that often?
no, so yeah, the reason I'm touching on that is that I think it used to be a very, very common thing that hotels would, yes, waive all rental fees based on food and beverage minimum or
Mhm.
whatever. We are seeing hotels now charging for rental fees, even with food and beverage minimums. I think the idea that that's just a given or that hotels are charging because they or putting a price tag on it because they know they can just say like, oh, well, we'll do it free and like make themselves look good. I don't think is 100% true. The reality is that meeting space rental is pure profit for hotels, but there are costs, right, to using that space. You have staffing costs, cleaning costs, depending on what setup and all of those wear and tear, whatever. So there is some actual usage costs associated, but for the most part, it is pure profit for the hotels. Hotels, a lot of people think too that, oh my gosh, they're making so much money off of me. Room rates are higher. They're just making so much money. Hotels, I mean, our industry was hit so hard 5 years ago that it's literally taken this long to recoup and kind of get to a break even point. And hotels are not necessarily raking in and profiting as much as we seem to just think based on they've still been hit with the same rise in costs that we all have on a day-to-day basis that they're having to pay for. So naturally some of their fees are going to rise. So that's just something to understand and be educated on. So hotel meeting space, yes, we're seeing hotels starting to charge for it, even if it is reduced based on food and beverage spend more and more. I do think it's always still negotiable. Ask the questions, push and see what you can land on for sure. Ask if you can piggyback again off of other programs that may be coming in. Can you not break down and tear down the whole room if another group's coming right in? What things can kind of cross over? What staffing can cross over? There's a lot of strategic ways to talk about meeting space and rental fees and food and beverage minimums.
And I think that also goes into like talking about the cost of AV just going up and it being expensive and all that. Like I make the point where if you have two back-to-back events, two different clients, and the room is set up in a similar fashion, then you should definitely have the conversation with, if you're using the in-house or if you're even bringing in a third party, can we keep some of the setup? Can we split the rentals? Can we make this happen so that if you have your screen set up, your pipe and drape, your staging, whatever, you might not do things like maybe the audio, or if it's LED screens, sometimes even the LED screens could be split, right? Like if a production company is there for 4 days, it's more in their advantage to keep that gear there and just make it happen for both events
Right.
than have to take it down, move it somewhere else, go through all that labor, and then try to do 2 events in 4 days versus doing one larger setup for those days. There are different ways to negotiate, and that goes into over the labor, into overtime, and
Yeah.
other ways in which you can not necessarily completely cut the budget, slash it in half, because it's still going to cost, right?
Right.
But find ways to leverage what you have, leverage
Yeah.
what the group prior or the group after you might have, and have those conversations. I think, like you said several times, you mentioned, yes, negotiation is a big part. Confidence, going to the table, knowing what you are asking for and knowing what some of your rights are and knowing what from your experience works and what doesn't is important. But also being there to collaborate, to have a conversation, not just like request, like I demand those things.
Right. Well, I cannot figure out where this mindset came from, where people or groups expect every hotels and places to just hand them everything as if they're not a business too. Like,
Right.
we're all in business. Every business, I hope, at least wants to do well and make a profit. I mean, if not, then why are you in business? So there's this expectation, I think, that's not 100% accurate.
It's
So
not. I was actually rolling my eyes over one of those LinkedIn posts. Somebody from the sourcing side of the industry was posting like, if you don't get all your waves fees and blah, 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 blah done, you're not doing negotiation right. You're not doing like this right. I'm like,
right.
give me a freaking break. Like literally, you're just going to get all your waves fees because somebody's just going to welcome you into the space and be like,
Yeah.
yeah, the bottom line will be $0 because you are so good at negotiating.
Right. And as if, I think you and I spoke on this a little bit before, the idea that people or hotels are paying clients to come there as if they're actually groups are profiting from a hotel to bring their business there. I've never seen that happen. And it's a very misleading statement to throw out there that you're getting paid to come to a hotel. Once again, I mean, I just don't.
Like, I don't know where to place this. Okay, so let's move a little bit into, I feel like it's either a new direction or maybe a new way to rethink events, especially larger events, larger conferences. And it's this movement towards a micro events, micro
Mm,
retreats as a strategic shift. And I feel like the industry is definitely hungry for more meaningful, more intimate experiences that justify that investment. And while they still seek ROI, they also seek connection. And the best way, I think, to go about that, still have your event, still manage your budget, still preserve that networking and connection that people go to your events for, right? They don't go for your food and beverage. I'm sorry. They go for the connections that they make. Yes, you could argue
unless
they
it's
could
like
go
a food
for
and
the
wine.
education. Some of them they would, right? But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, even education, you can get anywhere and everywhere you want as long
Oh,
as you stay up to date and informed and have the right sources. So you were talking about in the beginning about you building a retreat model that feels really, really timely. What, in your opinion, makes this smaller, high touch experiences or gatherings so impactful? And what's one small, maybe overlooked detail that elevates that entire experience?
yeah. So I think that when we talk about micro retreats or offsites and meetings, my philosophy is that oftentimes the big things happen in your small meetings. And it's so true because,
Oh, I think I remember Don saying something like that on a podcast that I recorded. I
yeah,
produced the Return on Wellness. And one thing that stood out from what he said, the biggest things happen in the smallest spaces. And I
yes,
think it
when we
was his way of saying when you put together a group of leaders, of C-level executives in a small space together to have to team build and talk over strategy and do all the things and also connect, right? Because you want them to connect. They're not just there to do business. That's when sometimes the biggest ideas come out of, and innovation thrives in that space.
yes, 100%. And early on, when we were talking of just everything surrounding this concept and this idea, that's what I had shared with Don. I was like, the biggest things happen in small meetings. And from what I see on my side and working predominantly with larger events, larger meetings, the small meetings do get overlooked. And I think, and that kind of leads us to what is the biggest thing that I think is missing or overlooked that can enhance. Two things. So, one, part of this micro retreat concept is filling a missing gap in the lodging sector of our industry. So, you
Yeah.
have your hotel, your convention space, which fits meeting and group needs. However, for these very small, intimate meetings, they don't really cater to that. There's not the privacy and the more intimate setting that you often need or desire for that.
Even as a client, you're many times not a priority for
Exactly.
this large venue because you might just need, I don't know, 12 rooms, 15 rooms. And
Right.
they're like, I have
Well, yeah.
5,000 rooms. Like, I don't want 15 rooms
Yeah.
just randomly here.
Right. And so, like in the hotel space, I mean, what constitutes a group size is 10 room nights or greater. And so it's not that hotels won't ever work with them. And you've got smaller boutique hotels that love it and it's perfect fit. But
Right.
again, they're not all catered to meet the needs of this particular type of offsite corporate retreat or meeting. So then we've got the whole Airbnb sector, right? That has come along. And that is where we found majority of these groups have
Mm.
shifted to is Airbnbs. However, the issue with that is there's no true privacy. You're sharing bathrooms with coworkers, which could get weird. You may have your CEO. I always say that's like stuck in a SpongeBob SquarePants themed kids room. Not
I mean,
ideal.
logistically, it sounds like a nightmare, if you ask me.
Right. And so that also doesn't create the space that's needed or wanted. So that's where we kind of come in the middle. We fill that gap of creating purpose built micro resort venues that are equipped with meeting space, your basic AV needs, private ensuite guest rooms that are also secure, outdoor meeting space, and amenities that can also assist with the health and even fitness aspects of groups. So the prototype we're launching here in Boise has an outdoor hydrotherapy circuit out back, which is going to be amazing.
I'll be
Also,
the first to want to test it just to make sure
yeah,
it's real.
also health focused and daily like snacks and beverages for
Mm.
group. Obviously, things can be catered to meet your needs, but that's really the concept of that.
So it's a
So
high touch experience that you would get.
absolutely.
I wouldn't call it a venue in a
We were,
in a space, right? Like, what do you call
yeah,
this space? What would you
what
say
we call
it's
the space, we've been leaning towards venue, micro resort
micro
or
resort? Okay.
venue, because that's, we've talked with a lot of more leisure and holistic retreat hosts and facilitators. And the differentiator is like, we want to create the space so that then the experts and the host or the meeting planner can literally just step in and do what they do best and accomplish whatever it is that they need to accomplish. So we've got our own in-house like DMC operation, if you will, where we've partnered with local, just phenomenal top of the line experience providers. So if you need team building or just offsite fun things to do, Experience Idaho, we can help connect you and facilitate that for you so that you're not spending so much time doing the things that you may not like to do or that just isn't in your wheelhouse of expertise, and you can focus on what you need to focus on.
So you said the Boise one is the prototype. Is there other locations right now on the roadmap to
Goal,
be?
yeah, our goal is to open 3 more by 2030. So 4 total by 2030. We have not solidified the locations yet. We've got our eye on where we want those to be, but haven't 100% confirmed that yet. And we've gotten such amazing response and know that there is a strong need for this. So I agree with you. It's a very timely. Corporations and small groups are looking for this type of space, and there just isn't a lot of it out there right now. And going to your question about what makes this so important and this missing piece, I think companies oftentimes don't value even themselves. So never mind the fact that maybe like larger hotels or things may not value this small piece of business, but you as a company have to really understand the importance of that and value it just as much. So don't
Mhm.
skimp out on this because it's only 11 people versus 11,000 people. You should be showing up and creating an event that you want carried through to your larger events. Get these are your core people most likely. Get them fired up. Let them experience what you want your attendees to experience and your other employees and staffing members to experience. Treat them well because they're going to be the ones that help send that fuel down and out to everyone that's leading into your bigger visions and the bigger events that you are planning for or creating.
You know what I wish that organizations would value moving forward is not just their C-level executives to have this type of experience, but go across all your verticals and bring some of those middle managers and put them in a room together, like 10, 15 of them, and have them work through some of the challenges that they face on a daily basis on the clock, right? So it's not just the tippy top of the organization that gets to enjoy these amazing retreats
Right.
and spaces. Like you have all these other verticals in your organization running operations, running logistics, running marketing, running all the things, what the fabric of your organization might be. And those people there, like your next level of probably your managers, director level, all of that, they could also benefit from something like that. So if you could create that structure, like as a culture, it's a cultural shift really
Right.
to value enough your employees and your organization to know that if you bring them to this one place once a year, there's so much benefit to the entire company and it's worth the investment long term because the output of that might surprise you.
I couldn't agree more. I think that that is really important. And I think we started to see some really positive shifts in the workplace culture when people were starting to like work from home. And now we see people getting back in the office and obviously we're back face to face. You really cannot put a price tag on that value because it's the downtime you have in between meetings, it's the opportunities to have coffee or have lunch or dinner with coworkers in a setting that you wouldn't have at in your workplace that creates more conversation. And I'm sure you feel the same, but for me, I thrive. I love getting to know the people that I do business with. Everything. I mean, when you get to know and understand and know a little bit about what's their family like, what do they enjoy to do? Do they love tacos as much as I do? Like, can we connect in that
They
way?
prefer all elk or chicken.
But truthfully, I don't think anyone could deny that people we're designed for community. We're designed to work together to communicate. And no one can deny that when you do have those stronger relationships on a more personal level, that everyone I think just does better and succeeds and aligns with vision. I will share too, real quick. I'll give Don a little plug here, but so he wrote a book called The Quest to Belonging, and it takes a really scientific approach to how people find belonging in different settings in the workplace. And I think that it's really pertinent to, especially the corporate world, to plug into that and understand our society has gotten to this place where they want to create belonging and there's this mentality that like everyone should belong everywhere, and the truth is that that's not true. Not everyone is going to feel like they belong or really should belong in every single thing. And so, coming from, I started my career out in the corporate world in Las Vegas. And having been out of that for many years now, I can see it's like, man, I mean, you have to show up. You literally almost live two different lives because you have to be in your taught, you have to be this one way at work and you can't talk about certain things, you can't act certain ways. Then you go home and here's who you are in real life. And I just don't like that. I like being able to show up and be my authentic self while also having a great balance and being professional and sharing my expertise too. And I love when I meet other people like that.
I love that too. I'm definitely like how you see me at home, you're going to see me in real life and at events. And maybe there's a little too much for some people. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
wanted to actually definitely drop a plug here on the episode that I got to produce with Don in December. And David, the host of Return on
Oh yeah,
Wellness,
I
flew
saw that.
into Boise, and we recorded here at a local studio. And it was
Yeah,
all about the book. It was all about the quest for belonging. And I'll make sure to drop that episode in the episode notes, the link to that,
yeah,
because it was a very enriching conversation. And then just getting to see Don really passionate speaking
yep.
about that. So definitely we're going to make sure to drop that. Now, as we're coming to an end here, I know. You've been in this game for so long. I mean, you've seen it change so many different ways. And sometimes it takes a lot of adaptation and it takes flexibility to be able to weather the event industry. What's
Yes.
your best advice for someone who's either just starting or maybe starting to feel worn out and
Mm.
overwhelmed and be like, this is a lot and I've been doing it for so long, and people get burned out? Like, what's your strategy to staying energetic, alive, and keep it sustainable, especially with the travel, right? Like, there's a lot of
Right.
traveling that comes with it.
Staying energetic, I wish I could answer that question. All I can say is, like, I had one of my best friends in college, Lauren. She used to always say, like, I just need some of your blood. Like, how is it you're like an energizer bunny all the time? So I don't know. That's just a gift to have, I guess. Maybe some call it a curse, but that's where your health and nutrition, I would say that would be my advice. Talk to Anka, let her guide you, because I do believe that plays a role in your energy and all that. For new people starting out, I think it's a really exciting time in our industry because we do have a lot of new people coming into the industry
Mhm.
in different facets. I think sadly we lost a lot of really good and seasoned people again in past recent years. Won't keep honing on that, but it is true. And so now we're seeing a shift of new faces and new blood coming in. I think with that is just explore, like, learn from the people who have gone before you. That's what I did when I first started out in this industry. I just really had allowed my doors to stay open for different opportunities that would come my way to get involved and to experience any and everything I could within the industry. And what that did for me was it really allowed me to have a really good, clear understanding of how so many different things operated, from hotel side to casino operations side to event planning side. How did these all work together when they're under one roof? Entertainment side,
Yeah.
production side. There's just so much. And if you've got a passion for it, just keep learning, keep engaging as much as you can. And eventually you'll find the right niche that you're most passionate about and that you'll find that you'll just want to run with and succeed at.
I love that advice just because it gives you that rounded understanding of the event
Yeah,
industry. And some parts of it you might not necessarily favor. You'd be like, that is
for
not for
sure.
me. But I now understand what those teams that are working on that side are going through, are facing, or require of me to help them, or they help me to have this experience be a better experience for all of us.
Exactly. Yeah, and for people who are feeling a little burnt out, I think that is normal in any career, any industry, anything you do in life. You can get to that place. So I always say just go back and remind yourself why you're in it to begin with. And is this something that you still want to pursue? Like, is that passion for you there? And if so, what are some areas or things that you can say no to so that you have more time to not only kind of rejuvenate and rebuild, but what are the things you really love about what you do? And how can you spend more time focusing on those things in that area of your career versus the things that kind of drag you down and lead you to that burnout phase? A lot of times I think, hey, AI, go to take part of Anka's training and figure out these AI tools, because that's what I've done. The areas it's helping me the most is in the things that I don't like or want to be doing every day from an admin perspective. Little things that can help. My focus this year has been implementing more conveniences in my life, things that help me work faster, better, and more effectively
Efficient.
every day. So maybe start with that. And then who knows, it may be that you're just ready for a change, and that's okay too. So go with that and make a change.
Absolutely. So now one of the most pressing questions before we end today's conversation, will there be elk tacos at Assemble Hospitality? No, just kidding. Where can people connect with you or learn more about Innovate Meetings and Assemble Hospitality?
Yes. So of
Yes to the
course,
tacos or yeah?
yes, yes, and yes. If I have anything to do with it, yes. So, of course, you can find me on LinkedIn, Brittney Cobb. You can find me on Instagram, Brittney Shea Cobb, which is how it's written out down here. Same for Innovate Meetings. You can also find Assemble Boise on Instagram. It's really fun. We're in the middle of construction, so you're seeing all of that whole phase happen there. For me, you can find both education on things that are happening and pertinent in our industry with meetings and events, as well as a little light into my personal life and travels. And I think you'll have a link too, Anka, right? I did want to say, if you are a planner and want some guidance or assistance with contracting, I never thought I would love contracts as much as I do, but I do. So I am more than happy to do a complimentary, really high level and in-depth contract review with you to see what areas that you may be at risk, where your company could save extra money, what value adds we can add. And again, most importantly, like, how can we protect your company should anything happen tomorrow?
We'll
And
have
I'll
the link
link
in the
to-
episode notes.
Okay.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brittney. Thank you for sharing your insights and your honesty and your overview of what this industry is looking like right now from a contract and negotiation point of view. And what are you up to these days? I really, really appreciated the conversation. And that is it for today's episode of Events Demystified podcast. And if this conversation helped you feel a little more informed and a lot more empowered, then subscribe, review, and share it with your fellow event professionals. We're all navigating this a space together, but smart, grounded conversations like this one can make the path forward a little clearer and maybe hopefully a little easier. And until next time, stay focused, stay curious, stay healthy, and keep designing with purpose.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with other professionals like yourself. If you're interested in learning more about TreeFan events, including our future AI education talks and workshops, or to see how we can support your next event, book a free 20-minute consultation through the link in the episode notes. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and social media for updates on future episodes, industry insights, AI news and tips, and more. And if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out.